So, when we last left off, I was speaking about the reliability of the KABC-II assessment, and I had just finished talking about how it's one of the most culturally non-biased and culturally fair assessments that there is. And also, the more statistical reliability was measured in terms of internal consistency coefficient. Both models, the Luria and the CHC model, had very strong correlations, with the Luria global score averaging at about 0.95 coefficient and the CHC global score being about 0.96. The Kaufmans also added in a test and retest reliability measure, and both the Luria and the CHC model also had a strong correlation for that as well, average being 0.89 coefficient and 0.92 coefficient respectively for Luria and CHC models. And they also, in the book I was speaking of, the Essentials of the KABC-II exam, they also listed potential qualitative indicators for why students might have a lot of repeated answers or a lot of incorrect answers. So they listed things such as environmental sounds, noises, short-term attention span for children, developmentally appropriate for young children, nervousness about the test taking, hunger, other environmental factors such as that. So they do have a lot of those things to take into account when they also measure the reliability. And as far as validity, it was measured the criterion-related validity, and they tested against, I think, 4 or 5 other tests. The Wechsler test, the preschool Wechsler test, the Woodcock-Johnson 3rd edition, and one of the other Kaufman assessments, the Kaufman Adults and Adolescents Intelligence Test. And they also both had a strong correlation for that validity, the criterion-based validity. And as far as my personal opinions and my perception of the role of this exam, and I think it is an extremely useful exam, a good starting spot to sort of see, especially for new students coming in who teachers don't have any experience with. It's a very good way of sort of seeing where to start with them, but I do think that educators need to be very wary about using this as the sole basis for placement or for instruction. I think these tests should definitely be combined with a lot of other types of assessments, both formal and informal, and also a lot of the other qualitative indicators really do need to be taken into consideration. The nervousness or hunger, all the environmental factors that can go into it, because if this is used solely to place students or for instructional purposes, it doesn't give a complete picture of the student's abilities, and I think that that can be kind of dangerous. So, but combined with other exams, I do think that it's a really good starting point, and that it can be very useful. As far as having room for students with special needs, it does worry me a little bit that the administration of the test is based upon chronological age for children, and so some students who have cognitive delays or anything like that are not going to be able to score well in their chronological age range. But again, that's why these assessments should be combined with other types of assessments. Also, in terms of the nonverbal students, I really enjoy the fact that there's opportunities for nonverbal students to also show what they know, because I think a lot of times students are assumed to have a lower level of cognitive ability simply because they're nonverbal, when really they could be just as good, if not better, than their typical peers. So I do think that that's a really good aspect of this exam. Also, it was noted that the test, there is not a Spanish version of the test to be administered, but that there are they do accept responses in Spanish. So if a question is given in English to a student and they respond in Spanish, that question or that response will be accepted. So that's good. However, it is difficult with having so many students who are English language learners, and they also may have very high cognitive ability and very high academic abilities, but just based on the language barrier, it's difficult to place them correctly. And I think that wraps it up for the Kaufman Assessment Battery for Children, 2nd edition.